these voice calls here open throughout the clinic. So if you guys have any questions or want to say anything that the chat filter will not let you say, feel free to put it there. I'll keep an eye on that, as well as say chat in game. So just a little overview on kind of how this is going to work. This clinic is going to be different than a lot of the other clinics that we do. It's not going to focus quite as much on technique as far as like how to do well at live shows. I will give you guys a little bit of feedback during the like practice show portion of this clinic, but we're mostly going to be focusing on, you know, how to enter shows, how to, you know, practice for them, just some tips for practicing, preparing, where to find like all the judging guidelines and that kind of stuff. And then we're going to go over like a few sample like order of go documents, score sheets, stuff like that. But the whole goal is to kind of walk you guys from start to finish, the whole process of showing, to walk you through that. And then if you guys don't mind, if you do have like questions or anything like that, try to put them in the lesson chat as opposed to the chat that is attached to the voice call. It's just a little harder to see when I have a notification there. So I'm going to go ahead and start off. You guys are probably going to want to watch. I'm going to share my screen on Discord for the first part of this, just to kind of show you guys, you know, where shows are posted. Again, this is intro to live showing, so this clinic is sort of designed for someone who has never done a live show before. So if some of you guys are experienced, I know we have a few people here that have been to a few of our shows. This will probably be repetitive for a lot of you guys who have participated in a show before, but this is going to also be recorded and used as a resource in the future for anyone who is looking to get into live showing. All right, so I'm sure some of you guys have seen already. I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen real quick. Sorry. Give me 1 second. Got too many windows open. All right. So if you guys want to go ahead and look at what I am sharing on Discord, this is the channel that you will go to see when shows are posted. They will always be tagged with the show announcements ping. So if you guys do not have that role, you can get it under front desk and role menu. There is a specific announcement role for that. So you guys will get a notification when new shows are posted. So this channel is going to have most of your important information as far as the date, time, server, location. You guys can see on my screen, I've got the practice show for tonight posted. I did make sample entry forms, order of go, all of that stuff tonight. So you guys will get to see every single step in the process. We do also have a very short course. This will all work just like a regular show, just with one alteration. We're not going to be doing an actual flat class tonight. I'm going to ask for a few volunteers once we get to that point, just to kind of give a demonstration of what that looks like. And then going back to this show announcement, I mentioned it has your date, time, location, server, all of that important stuff. It will also list which divisions are being featured at the show. Usually it'll just be one division, and I will show you guys once we get to the website where to find all of those descriptions so you know what you're signing up for. And then your show details here just goes through the entry per rider cap. So the entry cap for each division will always be listed under that specific division. The only one that we usually don't have a cap for is jumper shows, although we may start having a cap on those. We did have one the other night that had like 30 people at it, which was fine, but just ran a little longer than anticipated. But usually there will be a cap. It'll be somewhere between like 12 and 20 riders, depending on the division. Usually for divisions that include a flat, so that'll be all of our hunter divisions. Those I usually cap at either 16 or 18 people, depending on which arena we're in. Like this arena, for example, maybe 18, but usually 16 for all of those divisions. It has a link to our website here. We'll get to that in a second. That includes all of the dress code, division descriptions, like I mentioned, and then it also has a link to our judging guidelines, which I will show you guys, but since tonight is more of a beginner's overview, we will not be getting into specifics as far as the judging guidelines go. If you guys do review this and have any questions, feel free to let me know and I will answer any questions that you guys have. But we will do more clinics in the future for like specific divisions that we'll get more into those judging guidelines with. It also links you to this show details channel. This is where you will go to find your order of go. That'll tell you, that's the most important thing to have open during the show. That'll tell you, when in the group you are going. It'll also list your score, so you can kind of follow along there. The courses, obviously, just has a very short practice course for tonight. It'll give you information on how the course, like what gate the course is supposed to be ridden at, whether inside turns are required or not, and then it'll also go over whether opening and closing circles are expected for a specific course. One thing I did want to mention as well is with all of these courses, they will always have a in and out gate marked. Sometimes it's the same gate, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you will see that you can exit or enter through multiple gates. So just pay attention to those arrows and feel free to ask questions if you ever need clarification. When you are reading these courses, you want to make sure that you are jumping from the side that the number is on, if that makes sense. If you guys, again, ever have questions about that, feel free to ask. Moving down this channel, this also has your locations. So for check-in, I will always include a picture that shows you where the check-in line will be. If you are ever confused about that, feel free to ask for clarification. I usually try to include some important like landmarks in there so that you guys can tell exactly where it is. But the staff members will always be wearing here, I'll go ahead and put it on in-game real quick so you guys can see our red coat here. If you guys want to look at me in game, that will be kind of what you're looking for the staff members to be wearing at each show. So if you have a question or you're looking for check-in or anything like that, that is the jacket to look for. That is also the only jacket that anyone who is not a staff member is not allowed to compete in. I'm pretty relaxed as far as jacket colors go, but that is the one jacket that you are not allowed to wear unless you are a staff member. The second picture that'll be included in this locations channel will be the on deck area. So this will just show you where the rider on deck will be waiting. So this is the area that if you are coming as a spectator or it is not your turn yet, you guys will want to keep that area clear until you are called up as the rider on deck. Usually we will always announce the rider on deck. So at a show that would sound like, you know, that was, I'm just gonna use one of our staff members here. That was Charlotte Bunnyberg riding her horse with a score of, you know, 85. Next up is so-and-so riding their horse. And then on deck is, you know, our on deck rider. So when your name is called as the on deck rider, that is when you're allowed to enter this area. Otherwise, please try to keep it clear. All right, and then last thing in this channel is the class times. So these are all estimates. I've gotten pretty good at estimating what time generally things will end, but always be prepared to show up a little bit earlier than expected, especially for a show with multiple divisions, because the first division may run a little bit more quickly than we anticipate. We will usually send out an event update, so that'll be in this channel right here, to tell you guys when things will be starting. Like just as an example, from yesterday, this was the announcement that went out to kind of give people a heads up when check-in would be starting for that division. And then I usually put out another update when check-in is starting. And from that announcement time, you have 10 minutes to check in. Our check-in period will always be 10 minutes, just so that you guys don't feel like you are being rushed. And then that event update ping can also be found in the role menu, same menu that I showed you guys earlier, just if you want to get those event update pings as well. And then if you ever want to remove that role, like if I add it to myself, if I ever want to stop getting those pings, you can just uncheck it and it'll remove it for you. We're always happy to remove roles for you as well if you want. If you can't remember where to go to do that, just ask in the staff questions channel and we'll be happy to help you out. Going back to this show announcement, we already went over the event updates channel and where that ping role can be found. And then the last section that'll be on a show announcement will be the awards. So that will go over which awards will be given out for a specific show. So for our little practice show tonight, it'll be for 1st through 12th. And then anyone who is here, even if you, I mean, the cap on this show is 12. So anyone who does not make it into the show, you guys can claim a participation ribbon for being at the clinic tonight. All right, so what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'll just show you guys the entries channel. That is another super important one with a lot of information in it. I'm not gonna go over every single piece of information in here, so I encourage you guys to explore this channel and make sure you read everything. But what I'm gonna do is just go over the most important parts. So the first thing is looking at this entry sheet key. So when you look at one of these entry forms, here, let me go ahead and find an old one. This is from yesterday. Here, let me go ahead and switch screens real quick. So this is from yesterday's show. And these boxes right here are what this entry sheet key refers to. So the green boxes are you're on the order of go, you made it, you're not on the wait list. If it is a yellow box, that means that our entry cap has already been met, so you have been placed on the wait list. And if anyone who is on the order of go, so these green boxes, decides to scratch, the next person down on the wait list will be added to the order of go, so their box will be turned green. If you ever see a red box, so I'll just go ahead and change this last one as an example. If you ever see that red box, that means that there's something wrong with your entry. You are not on the wait list, you are not on the order of go. You need to fix something about your entry. Usually the most common reason it would be red is because you have entered a second horse into a division that only allows you to enter one. Usually for all of our shows, just because there are so many people who are interested in competing, usually we only allow you to enter one horse, but for certain shows like jumper shows, usually we will let you enter a second horse if you want to. If you are ever unsure about why the box is red, feel free to ask in the staff questions channel and we will help you out. If you ever see a blue box, that means that someone has a waitlist pass that they have used. So that'll look like this. I'm just gonna use this this last person on the entry sheet. So this means that someone is using a waitlist pass that they either won or purchased from our shop. The way that waitlist passes work is they do not bump anyone off of the order of go. So if this person, for example, did have a waitlist pass that they wanted to use, but our entry cap has already been met, they would not bump this person off of the order of go. They would just be added to it. So in addition to the people that signed up in time to make it onto the order of go. I found that that is the fairest way to do it. Usually I set entry caps to accommodate for some extra people, just in case we do have anyone that wants to use a waitlist pass. If we do, it's never happened before, but if we do have like a ton of people who have waitlist passes and want to use them, we may end up splitting any flat classes just to make things fair for everybody, because obviously you can only have so many people in the arena before it starts to become kind of impossible to do well in a flat class. The last thing, and it is not listed on this sheet because pre-scoring was not an option for this show, but if you see a purple box, that means that that person is pre-scoring. Usually it will say the date and time that they are going to be pre-scoring in the notes section. We do not offer that for every show, but we try to offer it for as many as we can. It kind of just depends on my schedule. So if that person is pre-scoring, usually the way that we do that is similar to the waitlist passes. If you decide to pre-score, you are not subject to the entry cap. You can pre-score even if you're on the wait list. So if any of these people with yellow boxes, if this was a show that allowed pre-scoring, if any of them wanted to pre-score, they could skip the wait list and be added as a pre-scored rider. So their score would still be factored in with the placings at the end of the show, but they would not compete at the actual show. They would set up a time with me, usually just via Discord DM. They would set up a time with me to meet up and do their pre-scoring. And just to show you guys kind of what that looks like, I'm gonna flip back to Discord real quick. If pre-scoring is available for a show, it will look like this. So I will include information underneath the division information that gives time windows that pre-scoring will be available. So anytime during those times, like for this show, for example, if you wanted to pre-score Monday the 26th at 9 p.m. All you would do is send me a DM and say, hey, I want to pre-score for the Hunt Seat Equitation Medal Division at 9 p.m. on January 26th. Are you available? And I would say yes. I'll put you on the list, and all you would do is just join the show ring call at the time that you requested, and I would join as well and kind of walk you through how we're going to do everything. You do still get schooling time if you're pre-scoring, but you only get 10 minutes. So if it is a division with multiple over fences courses, or like equitation where there's an over fences course and then there's a test, you would do both of those, and I would give you 10 minutes in between to practice if you want to. The one thing to keep in mind about pre-scoring is it will never be an option for divisions that include flat classes, because obviously it's kind of impossible to pre-score for a flat class. So that is how all of that works. Does anyone have any questions up to this point? I know I've just thrown a whole ton of information at you, and I've been talking for like 20 minutes straight. Does that kind of make sense to everybody before we get into our like practice show type thing? I'll just give you guys a second. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know in lesson chat at any point. Our next thing that we're going to move on to is I'm going to open entries for the practice show. One tip that I have for you guys is usually, and these times are not accurate currently in the Discord server, because I underestimated the amount of time I would spend talking at the beginning. But usually there will always be an opening time and then a closing time for entries. These are incorrect. I'll change them real quick before we start with that part. But usually the best way to make sure that you don't miss entries is when I'm entering shows, I always set myself an alarm on my phone for like a minute or two before entries are supposed to open, so that I can get that entry form open and refresh it once that event update announcement goes out saying that entries are open. Let me go ahead and see. Someone asked, so just to clarify, pre-scoring counts to our overall score in shows, or it's separate from that? So pre-scoring you can do in place of competing at a show. So if for some reason you're not able to make the time of the show, and you'd like to go ahead and do your round early, that is how that works. Or if you're on the wait list and you want to compete, but the show is full and it doesn't look like you're going to get off the wait list, you can pre-score. The entry cap for each show only applies to the number of people that can compete like at the show itself. So there's no limit to how many people can pre-score for a show, if that makes sense. I hope that answered your question. But you would pre-score instead of competing at the actual show. Yeah, definitely. So the way that I'm gonna do this practice show is just to give you guys sort of a realistic feel for how it is. Our shows do fill up very fast. Like this East Glade Hunter show that we did the other day, if you look at these timestamps, I opened entries late because my internet was being annoying, but entries opened in military time 14:34 that day, and you can see that all of these people entered within the first like minute of entries being open. Yeah, that's what I do too. Someone in Say Chat said I'm insane and kept refreshing the page. I do the same thing. I think that's the best way to keep from missing entries, especially in this server. And then obviously there are quite a few other servers that applies to as well. Yeah, they don't always fill up that fast, but definitely setting an alarm is a good way to make sure you don't miss that. So today, sorry, going back to answering your question, what I'm gonna do is the cap for the actual like practice show thing is going to be 12 people. Obviously, we have far more than that here right now. So anyone who ends up on the wait list for that practice show at the end, if you guys are interested in getting some one-on-one feedback on that very short course, I'm more than happy to have you do it, and I'll follow you through and give feedback throughout. And I do have a very short judging form made up for today. Obviously the course is only 3 jumps and there's no circles or anything like that. So we may end up having quite a few ties because there's not very many things for the score sheet to average out. This will be hunter style feedback. So, well, it applies to equitation as well. The main difference between hunter and equitation is the types of courses that you'll see. So in equitation classes, you'll want to do more inside turns and things like that. But the goal is the same for both of those. So you want to be straight, centered, jump everything at a 90-degree angle. And we'll move on to going over the judging guidelines in just a second as well. Just to very briefly go over the way that jumper divisions work, they're very simple here, just to make them a little bit easier to understand. Let me go ahead and share the website real quick. We have 3 jumper divisions. We've got green jumper, open jumper, and gambler's choice. The green and open jumper are judged the exact same. The way that those work is there's a first round that we usually refer to as the jumper round. That one has an allowed time. I usually try to be pretty loose with the allowed time. As long as you don't take any crazy wide turns, you should be able to make the allowed time. If for some reason you don't, it is 1 fault for every 1 second that you are over the allowed time. It is fine to be under it. And as long as you have a clear round, you move on to the second round that we refer to as the jump off round. That one, the whole goal is just to have the fastest time. The goal for the jumper round, the first round, is also to have the fastest time, but obviously you want to make sure you go clear as well. And the biggest difference between those two is the first round, the jumper round, is only allowed to be ridden either at a canter or an extended canter. And we'll go over what the gate callouts are once we get to the judging guidelines. But if you go faster than the extended canter, you will receive faults for that. So that will prevent you from going on to the jump off. For the jump off round, however, as long as you are going faster than a canter, you are fine. So ideally no trotting in that jump off round. If I see 1 trot stride when you're trying to do a really sharp turn or something, I won't get faults for it, but don't trot for more than a couple strides. So that's the same for the green and open jumper. Gambler's choice is very different. You get a set amount of time. Each jump in the arena is worth a certain amount of points, and you have that allowed time to jump the fences in whatever order you want, just to try and get as many points as possible. We'll do clinics on each different discipline and get more into the judging guidelines as well. But I just wanted to give a very brief overview. The equitation and the hunter divisions, like I said, are judged very similarly. It's mostly just the actual format of the division that can be a little different. One thing I did want to point out is we do have two different types of Hunter Derby divisions here. We do the Hunter Derby in a traditional format where it is two separate over fences classes, a classic round and then a handy round. Obviously the classic round is ridden like a normal hunter round with those nice wide turns, long approaches, and then the handy round is ridden kind of more like an equitation style course with more inside turns. You'll see like trot jumps, occasionally hand gallop jumps, all those in the handy. So that is the traditional format. They are separate. So everyone will do their classic round first, and then we announce placings for that class, and then we will announce who has made it back for the handy round. Usually it's the top, like between 10 and 14 riders from the classic will qualify for the handy. And again, that one you want to do more of those inside turns. It's a little more technical. And then your overall placing is determined by your total number of points between those two classes. So your score for your classic round gets added to your score for your handy round, and you are placed accordingly. Obviously, highest score wins. For the hunt and go format Hunter Derby, it is basically the same. It's just that both courses are combined into one. So you do one over fences round, half of it is the classic section, the other half is the handy section. There is no pause in between. If you guys are looking for an example of what that looks like, you can go to our YouTube channel, and we have quite a few course videos posted there. I always make a course video for those because I know they can be kind of hard to learn. So, but feel free to go watch one of those if you want to get a feel for how that class or division, works. And then the hunter pace is outside the arena. Your whole goal is to get as close to the optimum time as you possibly can. Equitation is judged very similarly to hunters, like I mentioned, just more inside turns. Usually it is an over fences round followed by a test, and we'll go over that, where to find information about those tests as well. All right. One more thing that I want to point out before we get into or I guess two more things, our little mock show here. Before competing in a show, definitely always want to check the dress code. So again, that is under shows on our website. I've got kind of a small window right now, so it's under like the more tab. But this is where you'll find the requirements for what you're supposed to wear to a show. We also have examples of allowed hairstyles here as well. There's a different dress code for hunter versus equitation versus jumper. The jumper divisions, your dress code does not affect your score at all. This is more of a recommendation for realism purposes. So definitely don't stress if you don't meet the jumper dress code. For equitation and hunter divisions, it does affect your score, and it is 4 points off of your score for every dress code error. So for example, if you have the wrong jacket and a hairstyle that's not allowed, or it's a rated show and your horse isn't braided, you would receive 8 points off of your score, 4 for each thing that's wrong. The other thing to look at very briefly is our breed suitability page. We do not do breed suitability. um, the only exception to that is if you have a gated horse, like off the top of my head, the Jorvik mountain horse and the Icelandic, they do not have all 4 gaits that you should have. So the walk, trot, canter, and extended canter. So they are not permitted in any hunter or equitation divisions, where obviously those gaits are required. But you are free to enter them in jumper divisions if you would like to. The other thing to go over as well, you're welcome to bring a magical horse. Just know that if, for example, their mane isn't braided, which most of them they're not, if you enter them in a hunter or equitation division, you will get points off if their mane is not braided. Obviously, jumper shows, it doesn't matter, so feel free to bring them. They just need to be in their non-magical coat while you're on competition grounds. The last and most important thing to go over is where to find our judging guidelines. So if you didn't see, it's under shows, and it's right kind of in the middle of this menu here. You can either look at it on our website, or you can click this button to have it open in a separate window. I know the formatting can be kind of weird on the website, so definitely recommend just opening the document. It'll always say the last time it was updated. Anytime I change or add anything to these guidelines, I will highlight it in yellow for at least a week afterwards, and I will make an announcement in the server in the news channel that's under the information section, going over the specifics, if it's like a huge change to the judging guidelines or if it's a more minor thing that I've just edited. I'll just make an announcement and say, hey, they've been updated, and then you can look on the document to see what is highlighted in yellow and what's been changed. So this is where you'll go to see the specifics about judging. Again, with this being a beginner kind of overview clinic, I'm not going to get into the specifics of, all of the judging guidelines for tonight. I would encourage you to look over them very briefly before our little mock show that we're going to do, just to see kind of how things will be judged there. I do, at the very bottom that I want to point out, I have jump charts to kind of help you get an idea of how your score is affected by your straightness and your centeredness to each jump. Obviously, each jump is scored out of 10 points. Usually it's 5 for your centeredness, and that's kind of shown by this first graphic, and then the second one kind of demonstrates the straightness aspect of it. So obviously dead center and completely straight, you would get a 10. We do have all of the penalties and everything like that listed for each division. I mentioned before the equitation test information. All of the possible things that could be asked of you are all listed here. So feel free to kind of take a closer look at these judging guidelines, either while I'm talking or on your own time after we are done here. So that is definitely the most important thing to take a look at before competing in a show. So all of that said, I will go ahead and get our entries open in just a moment. I'm not going to change the times on the entry channel, just because I'll be able to tell you guys when they're open. But if you want to, go ahead and click on the entries channel under event office and open that link that says entry form. That is going to be our link. And if you open it right now, it says This form is no longer accepting responses, and that is fine. If you ever see that, it just means that entries either are not open yet or they have already closed. So in this case, they've not opened yet. I'm going to go ahead and open the entry form in just a second. So feel free to open that link and get yourself prepared. You will have to refresh it once they're actually open. So obviously in a setting where I'm not telling you immediately when they're opened, you want to keep an eye on that entry time and then just keep refreshing. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and open entries now. So if you guys want to go ahead and refresh that entry form and submit your entry. And then I'm gonna share my screen to show you guys what it looks like on the other end when it comes through. Right. So on my screen right now, you guys can see the the entry sheet. You will always want to, and this is the second link that's in that channel, the current entries link. You'll always want to double check and make sure that your entry actually went through. Sometimes Google Forms can be really weird, and I personally have entered shows before and it didn't, for some reason, like take my entry the first time. It's only ever happened like once, but I definitely recommend coming to this sheet just to make sure that everything went through and looks correct and all of that. Wow. So you can see the count here. This is something new that I've started doing lately, just so you can kind of see how many people are entered and then how many are on the wait list. So just as a heads up also, this is something that I have to manually update. So if you ever see a show that has a cap of like 16 people, but it says that, you know, there's like this entries thing says like 20, it just means that I haven't had a chance to manually update it yet. All right. So if you guys want to go ahead and take a look at the courses, that'll be in the show details channel. Those of you who made it onto the order of go, so those of you with green boxes next to your name, you guys will be our like practice victims, I guess. And then the people who have yellow boxes beside their name, if you guys would like to, you're welcome to practice this course right now. But I will give time at the end once we have finished going over everything for anyone who wants to get feedback on that course. So once entries are open, usually I won't do it immediately, but I do try and have the order of go out at least like an hour or so before the show starts. It'll usually be out sooner than that if it's a show that's not being posted like same day. Because a lot of the times what I will do is I will just announce a show in the early afternoon that's happening later that night. But for example, our annual show that is happening this coming weekend, that one I'm going to be posting tomorrow just because it is a bigger 2-day show to give everybody time to prepare and everything like that. But for the most part, our shows are posted either the day before they happen or the day that they are happening. So again, everyone who made it onto the order of go will be on this document, and then everyone who is waitlisted will also be here just in this bottom section. And then if anyone who's on the order of go does scratch, so they decide that they either can't or no longer want to compete, their name will be removed, and then someone, whoever is at the top of the wait list, will be added in their place. And the wait list goes in order of when you signed up, just to keep things fair. And then just to give you kind of a look at how, like I mentioned, tonight's going to focus more on like the hunter equitation style of judging and all of that. But just for an example, this is the order of go from our jumper show the other day. I've blacked out all of the names and everything, so you can just see the times and all of that. But this is what an order of go for a jumper show will look like. Your time will go in, your time vaults will be automatically calculated by the sheet. And then placings obviously will go in order of who was fastest. It looks like everyone was clear for the most part for the jump round. So most everybody moved on to the jump off. If you do go off course on your jumper round, you will not move on to the jump off, unfortunately. And then for divisions where it's either timed or we have a like an under saddle class and then an over fences class, your like overall placings will be based on total points earned. So we have a key for that in our standings. If you guys are interested in looking at that, I can just show you real quick. So this is what those placings are based off of. So for example, this person got second in the jump around, second in the jump off, and that won them the division overall. And then they did get extra points for winning champion at a rated show. So these are the points that get added on top of your placing points from each round, if that makes sense. And just so you can also see what a normal hunter order of go will look like, you'll have our under saddle placings, which we will do a very brief under saddle like demonstration just to show you guys how that looks. But that'll always be first. Then we will move on to over fences. Your score will be there, and then overall placings will be determined by total points. Because obviously the under saddle placings don't really convert into a score out of 100. All right, I know I've been talking at you guys a ton. Does anyone have questions that they can think of right now? It looks like most of you guys are done practicing the course. We will go ahead and do our very short little demonstration of what an under saddle class looks like, just for anyone who has not seen one before. Usually at a hunter show, if we are doing either green hunter or open hunter, those are the only divisions that have a flat class. The flat class will come first, and flat and under saddle are the same thing. People use them interchangeably. I try to be correct and say under saddle all the time, but sometimes I end up saying flat. So just so you know, those are the same thing. So the goal for those is to obviously keep your distance as best you can and follow the directions given by your announcer as promptly as possible. So let's see, I don't know if we have enough staff members here right now to do an example. Is there anyone here? I need like maybe like 6 people who feel really confident about their, or at least somewhat confident about their flat class experience. Okay, all right, hang on. I'm gonna go off of who said stuff in Say Chat. So Isabella Swifthoof, Ashley Ravenberg, Melissa Shine Knight, Apollinaria Comet Sky, Charlotte Bunnyberg. Let's see. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then Zari Snowfeather. If I could have you guys in the arena. And you can turn your jumps on just to kind of give you a better frame of reference for where I'm going to have you cut the arena. You know what, just to make it more interesting. We can also have May Sweet Song and Eleanor Ashworth come on in, just to make it interesting. So I'm gonna have you guys cut the arena kind of where the butterfly jump and the rainbow jump are. I'll stand here for a second so that you guys can kind of see. Obviously, this is just for demonstration purposes. No one's getting judged on this. I will point out things that are happening that should not be happening if I notice them, but so for anyone who has not participated in one of these before, the way that it will start is I will ask everyone who is competing in the undersaddle to enter the arena and spread out, tracking left at the walk. And that is a little bit misleading. So when someone asks you to track left, that means that when you are, just for your own visualization purposes, if you're in the middle of the arena and you walk towards the rail, that means that you turn left once you hit the rail. It does not mean that you turn left when you enter the arena, because if you notice, all of the people in the arena right now are tracking left. But if I were to come into this in-gate here and turn left, I would be tracking right. So it's kind of opposites. So if you're asked, I will always ask you to track left, but if another server ever asks you to track right, that means you need to turn left when you enter the arena. But for EHC, you will always turn to your right when you enter the arena. And you're more than welcome to enter from whatever gate you want to. I'm not very strict about that when it comes to flat classes. All right, so after I have you guys enter the arena and spread out, you're welcome to go at any gate you want to find a spot on the rail. If you need to gallop for a second to you know, get to a really nice opening, feel free. I kind of keep an eye on everyone, and I will not start judging until it looks like everyone has found their spot. So right now it looks like everybody has got their spot on the rail. And when judging starts, I will say, riders, this is your class. You are now being judged at the walk. And that is when I start judging. So if you make any mistakes before that point, they will not count. All right, looks like you guys are pretty well spaced right now. Eleanor and Apollinaria, I would not get any closer to each other, but you guys are fine where you're at right now. And then when I ask you to do certain things in the flat class, I will always say it twice just to make sure that you hear it. So I will, as an example, say, riders, please trot. Riders, please trot. Perfect. Saw a couple late transitions there, but I know this is kind of a confusing, confusing format here. Your whole goal is to do that as soon as I ask for it, but not before I'm done talking. So if you think you know what I'm about to ask for, you are more than welcome to start your transition up into a trot, early, but just be careful with that, because sometimes I mix the order of things up a bit. And again, we're not going to get super into like how to successfully navigate a flat class. I will definitely do a separate clinic on that because it is a whole like hour-long topic in itself. So keep an eye out for that in the future. But I will call out anything that I see. I don't remember who it was, but I saw somebody do a little bit of like a curl. So if you hold down like your arrow key and make a tiny circle, that will get you penalties. You want to try and make your circles as big as you possibly can, while not running into anyone else. So definitely look, turn your camera around before you try to start a circle, just to make sure you're not going to be colliding with anyone or cutting them off. Nice, that was better. I think in that situation, that was probably the biggest circle you could have done, Apollinaria. Sorry, I would use your nicknames, but there's so many of you on the call right now. I think that was the biggest circle you possibly could have done in that situation, but obviously if you have more space, make it as big as you can. I'm not going to make you guys canter, because that would be mean. Riders, please walk. Riders, please walk. Very nice. Saw a little bit of a late transition up at the top of the arena on the black Hanoverian there. And I will always ask you to change direction at least once during an undersaddle class. And I will always say it the same way. I will always, and don't do it yet, this is just an example. I will always say, riders, please reverse directions at the walk. Sometimes if it's not a very full class, I'll have you do it at the trot, but I won't have you do it any faster than that. So that said, for real this time, riders, please reverse directions at the walk. And you obviously want to look before you turn, so you make sure you don't run into anybody. And again, you don't want to do like a tiny curl. So when I say curl, I'll just do one on the rail here so you guys can see. When I say curl, I mean like this. You want to try and make it bigger. So ideally, more like this. And same thing when you turn around. You want to make it as nice and smooth of a turn as you possibly can, but you don't want it to be like super tight like a curl. So if you're holding down your keys, you're probably doing it wrong. Usually I will have you guys go through all of the gates in a flat class or an undersaddle class. I will usually have you do walk, trot, canter, and depending on the class size, extended canter in both directions. Sometimes I'll have you change directions and then change again, just to kind of mix things up. But that is generally how things will work. In the Green Hunter division, I almost never ask for extended canter. It's almost always just walk, trot, and canter. All right, so we're going to pretend that we've gone through all of the gates necessary for this undersaddle class. And the last thing that you will do during an undersaddle is you will line up in front of the judge. In EHC, I know some other servers do this differently. Technically, they do it the more realistic way, where they have you line up with your back facing the judge. But in EHC, it will always be with your front, so like your face facing the judge. So that said, if I could have my examples here, please line up in the center of the arena facing your judge. There is no time limit to line up. You just want to make sure you don't reverse directions to go into the lineup, who is this? Melissa Shy Knight. So if I were you, I would have continued walking around behind me and then come into the lineup that way, because what you had to do there was you actually had to kind of turn around in order to get into the lineup. So I'll just demonstrate. You kind of went like this to get into the lineup. You guys can continue lining up. I don't care if you run into me. That's fine. So you want to avoid doing that. In that situation, what I would have done is, and I'll just do it at the canter so I don't take forever. I would continue around until I can come into the lineup without changing directions. So I would walk all the way around and come into the lineup like this, so that I don't have to turn around in order to go into that lineup, if that makes sense. If you're ever in doubt whether it would be counted as reversing into the lineup, like reversing direction to come into the lineup, just walk around behind me. Again, there's no time limit when it comes to that, so you guys are welcome to take as much time. Someone in Say Chat asked, are you judged on the lineup or is it just for realism? So that's a great question. Yes, kind of. So I'm just going to open up our judging guidelines real quick and just show you on my screen. So this is our under saddle section here. There is a separate little section down here for lineup penalties. So if someone were to line up with their back facing me, they would receive 10 penalties for that. If they were to cut someone else off when they were coming into the lineup, they would receive 10 penalties for that. Like I just mentioned, reversing direction to line up, that is slightly less severe of a penalty. It's only 5 penalties if you do that. If you line up too close to someone else, so if I'm in this flat class and I decide to line up right next to Melissa right here, and I come into the lineup and I stand right here, I would get 5 penalties. Melissa would not get any penalties at all because Melissa was already here, and you are not supposed to move after you halt in the lineup. So that's our next one, is if you wiggle, I know I've accidentally bumped keys before and ended up like walking out of a lineup. That does give you penalties as well. And talking or emoting in game does also give you penalties during the lineup. When I start announcing placings, the judging is done, so you guys are more than welcome to like cheer, clap, whatever you want to do, emote wise, once I start announcing placings. But until I tell you that I have our placings for that class, I would honestly just stay in photo mode. I do that sometimes to make sure that I don't end up accidentally moving. And what that will sound like, and just again for anyone who has never participated in one, once you are in the lineup, what I will do is if it's just me, I'll come to one end of the line and I'll walk across the front. And if I have another judge, they'll usually start at the other end and walk towards me. And we will inspect people. Someone asked in Say Chat, so I do have a question. As we are lined up now, the people who are further up, would they lose points? No, it doesn't matter what the line looks like, especially in this arena, because there's no like straight edge to really line yourself up with. But I don't care, how far in front of other people or how far behind other people you are. That is totally fine as long as you don't do any of these things that are on this list of penalties. You're good. The other thing that's not on here, but I will mention, is don't go into the global store. Like I mentioned, when I come across the front of the line here, I am clicking on you and inspecting your horse's level, your horse's mood, your rider's dress code, all of that stuff. So don't go anywhere until I say, you know, hey, I have the placings for this class. So let's see. Someone asked, do you lose points if it takes you too long to line up? No. I mean, if you're making multiple circles around me before lining up, I might just, you know, unmute myself and be like, hey, you know, if you could find a spot in the lineup, that would be great. You won't lose points, though. Yeah, I've never had a problem with that. So going back to how these end, we'll pretend that I've already made my way across this line. I've inspected everybody. I put everything into our judging sheet, which I will show you in a moment. Usually I will come and stand in front of the line again, and I will say, I have the placings for our practice show under saddle, and then I will announce them from lowest placing to highest. So if we're doing placings to 12th, I'll start with 12th place. When your name is called, so when your placing is announced, you can go ahead and walk out of the arena. But since there are no placings for this practice flat, we will skip that for today. Thank you to my examples here. You guys can go ahead and exit the arena. And before we move on to the over fences portion of this, I'm just going to very quickly show you a sample, well, not a sample, a real judging sheet from the other day. So if anyone was at the East Glade Hunter show, this is the score sheet. This is what our under saddle score sheets look like. Obviously, rider and horse information goes here. These numbers just refer to your spot on the order of go. That helps me make sure I get, I paste your placings in correctly. Once we are done, moving over, this column is your rider level. So if you look at our judging guidelines, we have a few tiebreakers for under saddle classes. We look at rider level first, so we just write that down for everyone. Then severity of penalties accrued during the class, and then by rider jacket stats. And then if there's still a tie after all of that, I will pick one jump from the over fences course and have you guys, whoever's tied, I will have them jump that, and whoever jumps it best will win the tie. And we actually had to do that last night because we had a 3-way tie. So that was kind of fun. So obviously this is your final placing. The errors section, this is where your judges will put in their errors. So this was my column last night. This was our other judge, Nate's column last night. If you get any penalties for your lineup, they go in a separate column right here. If there are any issues with your dress code, those go here as well. And then if your horse's mood is not green, then you will get penalties for that. And this chart kind of shows you everything. Oh yeah, no worries if anyone needs to head out. The rest of this clinic is going to be recorded, so feel free to just check it out on YouTube later. Yeah, and I'll do I will do a mock check-in so that you guys can get experience with that. And anyone who is on the order of go who does not check in will be replaced by someone who's on the wait list. Right. So just going back to this score sheet, your horse level obviously matters for every division except for our jumper divisions. Obviously, since it's speed based, I would recommend having a maxed horse, but if you want to compete on like I think their speed max is out at level 13 now, So if you want to bring a level 13 horse to a jumper show, that's fine. It doesn't affect your score. But for hunter and equitation shows, it does. It is -2 points from your score for each level under 15. And then your total here, this is a column that kind of automatically adds itself up. You can get negative penalties for making good decisions. So this is actually a great example. This person made no mistakes during the undersaddle, and they actually made a good decision. I remember actually when I asked people to reverse directions, they paused for a second because if they had turned around in that moment, they would have run into someone else. So I gave them a negative penalty for making that good decision to, pause a second and not reverse until they could safely do so without running into someone else. We will always try to put notes in here about what you're getting penalties for. Again, that full list of penalties can be found here, and it can also be found in our judging guidelines, as well as all of the gate callouts. So if you're wondering what something is called, that will help you there. Does anyone have any questions about undersaddle stuff in general before we move on to the over fences portion? We're gonna start off with a very brief mock check-in period so that you guys can kind of see what that is like. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I'll put you towards the end of the order of go there. And if anyone has questions that they happen to think of after we are done here, feel free to just send me a DM and let me know. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close entries for the practice show in just a second. So if anyone did not enter and they want to, just get that entry in. Oh man, I'm sorry. Someone doesn't have the course. This will still be useful information too, and if you want to see exactly what is happening, Hit Steel Knight is recording everything, and then we also actually have a stream up as well, and you can find the link to that in the lessons and clinic announcement channel. It's streamed by JNEF. All right, so if you guys remember, I mentioned the locations channel on Discord. If you look at the check-in area, if you guys could go ahead and make your way over to the check-in area, we're going to do a very short mock check-in. I will ask you guys to come over to this area in a very similar way at an actual show. So usually you guys are completely free to school during check-in until I tell you that schooling is closed. Yeah, if you're on the wait list, it's definitely a good idea to check in. And that goes for shows as well. Even if there are a ton of people on the wait list and you don't think you're going to make it onto the order of go, it's definitely still good to show up. Yeah, if there's anyone who doesn't show up for check-in who is on the order of go, I'll just remove them. It's okay. That does bring up something though, real quick. I'll just share my screen again. So the one channel that I did not go over before is the edit entry channel. Again, a ton of information here. Feel free to come back and read it. It is all important. All of these forms are separate separate messages. So if you are on mobile and you want to just like press and hold to copy the text, you can do that. It just makes it a little easier so you don't have to type out everything. But this top form is your scratch form. And this is the one that you want to fill out if you can no longer make it to a show and you want to remove your name from the entries list. There is no penalty for no showing. I do not track that. I do not, penalize that at all. It's just nice to scratch if you know for sure that you can't make it. But if you ever sign up for a show and forget and you don't come, like, that's fine. If you want to edit your horse or rider name, there is a form here for that as well. If you want to request a spot on the order of go, you can use this form. You can do that for any reason. I don't care. Sometimes people will request spots because they have another event to get to. Sometimes, like, I know I personally like to go towards the end when I show because it makes me less nervous when I get to watch other people go before me. So one thing to note about that one is you cannot request a spot if you are on the wait list. So if you are on the wait list, you want to wait until you get moved on to the order of go, and then you can request a spot. The early check-in form is if you are not able to make it to check-in, but you are certain you'll make it by the time the show starts, by the time you need to be here competing, you can fill that out, and I will check you in early. If you do not, I've never had an issue with this, but if you use that form and then you don't show up, if it starts to become a pattern, you may eventually lose the ability to do that. All right, so I am going to go ahead and just pretend that this is a normal show. So again, at a show, you guys can be schooling before it starts, and I will say we're going to get started with check-in in a minute. I'll usually say for what division, and I will tell you guys to head over to the check-in area if you've not done so already, and then we will go ahead and get started. So, Narissa Alvarez, you're riding PS Heartbreak Anniversary, is that correct? All right, and you'll do it just like that. So what I will do is I will read out your rider's RRP name as well as your horse's name, and then you can just confirm in Say Chat that it is correct, and then you are all checked in and you're good to go. All right, Ashley Ravenberg, you're riding RB Denial Time, is that correct? All right, thank you. Autumn Diamond Luck, you're riding LD Eye Candy, is that correct? All right, thank you. Someone asked in Say Chat, quick question, is the extended canter just the gallop or something completely different? So yes, Star Stable calls the extended canter the gallop, and all of that can be found in our judging guidelines. Yeah, it's up 4 from the halt. That is the extended canter, or in equitation, sometimes you'll see it referred to as the working canter. Of course. Here, let me go ahead and share my screen for those of you that are not on the order of go document so you can see what I'm doing. Cecilia Bates, you're writing Checkpoint, is that correct? All right, thank you. Ryder Carson, you're writing Whispering Willows, is that correct? All right, thank you. Allison Lejean, you're writing L Bar Will Iron Bend, is that correct? All right, thank you. Anna Flower, you're writing After the Mist, is that correct? All right, thank you. A Polycomet Sky, you're riding RH, Stole My Thunder, is that correct? All right, thank you. Isadora Kane, you're riding Take It on the Run, is that correct? All right, thank you. Mary Polar Cake, you're riding MP Something Pink, is that correct? All right, thank you. May Pierce, you're riding Wake Up Call, is that correct? All right, thank you. Genevieve Pearlborn, you're riding Rotten to the Core, is that correct? All right, thank you. And you guys are welcome to get a little closer if you want. I promise I don't bite. Georgia Blueland, you're riding HFH Aurora, is that correct? All right, thank you. Charlize Farsong, you're riding Augustus, is that correct? All right, thank you. Let me make sure I don't have someone on ignore. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Right. Kylie Booker, you're riding RS Ruby Star, is that correct? And I did have someone on ignore. I am so sorry about that. Evelyn Holloway, you're writing Ask the Judge, is that correct? All right, thank you. Could have sworn I cleared my ignore list before all this, but I guess not. All right. All right, so as you can see, we do have a few people who, we did have one person let me know that they need to be moved towards the bottom, but there are also a couple of people who scratched. I don't know if this rider is in the call. All right, so if you look at the order of go right now, we've got 3 openings here. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and move our first 3 people on the wait list up. And then once we get started with the like mock over fences portion here, I'll just kind of run it like a show normally will go. So during check-in, you guys will have 10 minutes to check in and hang on. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Right. So usually you guys will have 10 minutes to check in. If you do not check in by the end of those 10 minutes, you're going to get removed from the order of go and your spot will be given to the next rider on the wait list. And once check-in is closed, it is unfortunately too late to undo that. So if you know that you're going to miss check-in, but you will be able to make it to compete, that is a case where you would want to fill out that early check-in form. All right. So normally during an over fences round, I will be recording. I will mute myself in the Discord call, but I will talk while I judge and record that usually on my phone so that you guys can get more personalized feedback. Instead of doing that today, I'm just going to talk during each person's round. So normally I will be silent during your round, but today I will talk and do kind of what I would do in the recording, just, in this call. And then if anyone on the waitlist would like some feedback on this short little over fences course at the end, please feel free to hang out afterwards and we can definitely do that. All right. I am going to be filling out the judging form for today, though. So just to give you guys kind of an idea of what that looks like for today, it's just our 3 jumps and then your turn score. So I will share my screen throughout this whole time so that you can see kind of what's happening behind the scenes in between rounds. Just give me 1 second to get myself all set up. And again, normally in this notes area, you would have your recording linked. But for today, I will just talk during everyone's round. All right. So how it'll work during a normal show is I will say a check-in is now closed. If you guys are currently schooling, please go ahead and wrap up your schooling rounds. If you're in the middle of a round, you can go ahead and finish it, but just make this your last one. I will wait for the arena to be clear, and then once that happens, we will go ahead and get started. So the way that will work is I will say, using our order of go here as an example, I will say, up first for our practice division is Autumn Diamond Luck riding LD Eye Candy, and on deck is May Pierce. And then what I will do is I will come over to the in-gate, I will inspect our first rider, make sure that their dress code is all good, that their horse's mood and level is good, no errors there. And then once that is done, I'll give you guys some space and I will say, rider, you may begin whenever you're ready. And then at that point, you can go ahead and enter the arena and start your course whenever. And you are good to go ahead and begin. Jump 1 was really nice. You were a tiny bit off to your left from the center. Jump 2 is beautiful. And what you guys cannot see right now is I'm filling out a Google form that will go onto that score sheet. Tiny bit off to your right, and maybe slightly crooked to your right over jump 3, but not too bad. And then your turns throughout were really nice and smooth, so no points off there. All right, and then I just hit submit on my form, so that then what I do here is I go back over to our score sheet, and I have this auto calculate my score for me, and with only 3 jumps, technically 4 elements on the course. Your 3 jumps and then your turn score. Um, we're probably not going to have a whole ton of variation in those scores tonight, but I'll go ahead and transfer that score onto the order of go. And then at this point, I will normally unmute myself again, and I will say that was Autumn Diamond Luck riding LD Eye Candy with a score of 90. Up next is May Pierce riding Wake Up Call, and on deck is Evelyn Holloway. And that's kind of how things will flow. So I'll just continue like it's a normal show. And just so you guys know, I'm not actually judging like dress code or anything like that tonight, because obviously it's just a clinic. All right, Ryder, you may begin whenever you're ready. Jump 1, you were just a tiny bit off to your right from the center. Jump 2, you were a little bit off to your left. That one was more centered than jump 1. Turned a little late for jump 3. I think you probably could have turned like a stride or 2 earlier. You were really far off to your right for that jump. And then just because the turn to that jump did mess you up, it'll come off of your turn score as well. All right. That was May Pierce riding Wake Up Call with a score of 80. Up next is Evelyn Holloway riding Ask the Judge, and on deck is Anna Flower. All right, Ryder, you may begin whenever you're ready. Jump 1 was nice. You were just a little bit off to your left from the center. And then you were a bit crooked to your right over jump 2. Then you were a little crooked over 3. So when you took off for the jump, you were off to your right from the center. And then when you landed, you were off to your left, which just shows me that you were a bit crooked that to the left. And then just make sure that once you're done with your round, you keep that on deck area from the locations channel clear. Whoops. All right, so that time your horse was in the orange mood-wise, so that did take 10 points off of your score. And this is a great example, actually, because if you look at this turnout column, this shows you how many points you lost from these categories over here. So horse level, mood, and then your dress code. And then your course is your score, not counting all of that turnout stuff. So that was your score for just the course, just 1 through 3, and your turns. And then your final score here is all of that together. So for a real show, you would definitely want to have your horse at maximum happiness mood-wise. But it doesn't matter today. One thing I do want to mention as well, and we're not getting too into like specifics today, but just because I've seen a couple of you guys do it, make sure that you are always walking in and out of the gate, because if you look at our judging guidelines here, you do. Now I'm not going to be able to find it. There we go. So if you trot or canter through the in-gate or out-gate, it takes 3 points off of your final score per time it happens. So if you trot in and you trot out, that'll be a total of 6 points taken off of your score. And we will do more clinics in the future that go really deep into these, all of these judging guidelines and everything. All right, so that was Evelyn Holloway writing Ask the Judge with a score of 67.5. Up next is Anna Flower writing After the Mist, and on deck is Ryder Carson. All right, Ryder, you may begin whenever you're ready. Very nice. Turned a little early for jump one, so you were off to your left from the center, kind of touching that like black bar on the left side of the jump on the poles. Two was better. You were still a little bit off to your left though. Then you were a bit crooked to your right over jump three. You jumped it in the center to start, but you drifted right over it. And I always prioritize straightness over being perfectly centered. So if you turn really late or really early, just try and make sure that you are jumping the jump at a 90-degree angle. Obviously, wiggle as much as you can to try and, straighten out a bit. But yeah, definitely prioritize straightness over centeredness. All right, that was Anna Flower riding After the Mist with a score of 70. Up next is Ryder Carson riding Whispering Willows, and on deck is Isadora Kane. All right, Ryder, you may begin whenever you're ready. Even though this is a fake show, I will give you guys ribbons for tonight. And I'll show you how to do all of that as well. First jump was beautiful. You were a tiny bit off to your left from the center. Second jump was really nice. Nothing I would change about that. Your turn off the rail to jump three was really nice, but you kind of drifted a tad bit to your right on your approach. So you ended up jumping it a tiny little bit off to your right. Other than that, that was really nice. That was Ryder Carson riding Whispering Willows with a score of 92.5. Up next is Isadora Kane riding Take It on the Run, and on deck is Narissa Alvarez. All right, Ryder, you may begin whenever you're ready. I hope getting to see kind of how this all runs is helpful. If you guys think of any questions, definitely feel free to let me know. Your turn off the rail was nice, but you kind of drifted left on your approach. It was definitely more noticeable over 1. It was still noticeable over 2, but it just looked better. And I think you turned a bit late for jump 3. Not too late, but you probably could have come off the rail like half a stride or so earlier. You were a tiny bit off to your right from the center for that one, but you were pretty straight. That was Isadora Kane riding Take It on the Run with a score of 82.5. Up next is, Narissa Alvarez riding PS Heartbreak Anniversary, and then on deck is Cecilia Bates. Yeah, no worries if anyone needs to head out. Thank you guys for coming. The rest of this will be available on YouTube, hopefully tomorrow. All right, Ryder, you may begin whenever you're... Turned a little early to jump 1, so you were like almost touching that black bar on the poles on the left side of jump 1, but 2 looked really nice. You were still a little off to your left, but not that bad. Maybe some slight wiggling on your approach to jump 3. It looked like you turned early, but you kind of drifted